Hello, all heroes, and welcome back to Invincible Guarding the Globe. And today we have got a new restricted arena to talk about. This time around, it is the tag for armed characters, actually. Now, what typically defines armed characters? Because to be fair, in a world where superhumans can lift buildings and aliens can conquer a whole continent in a matter of a day, you'd be forgiven for forgetting when a character just has something like a gun. But basically, for the purpose of this particular arena, the armed tag is anybody who has kind of an external weapon that they use of any kind, and that can vary pretty aggressively. But let's talk about that here. So if we go to our tags here, and we pull up the armed list, it is not aggressively extensive, but the characters who are in the armed tag category are extremely potent. So first of all, Universa. Yet another arena where Universa can and will reign supreme. Universa does have an armed status on her tags, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, Universa is arguably, if not straight up, the best character in the game. The reason for that is primarily her skill here, Tripping to Life Fantastic, where every time she gets a crit with her basic attack, it will bounce to additional enemies, going all the way up to 4 additional enemies when you take it up to level 10, effectively meaning that she has the potential to do massive damage to the entire team with one strike. And of course, while she's at it, all of her other abilities are very good as well. I got her literally maxed, and she is extremely worth that maxing, in my opinion, because, man, she destroys everybody. So many arenas, I have to crow on and on about how good Universa is, but I literally cannot say it enough. Just how much Universa does for your account and how much you are missing if you don't have her. Next, we do have Thula, actually. The knife that's attached to her hair actually does count as an external weapon for the point of the tags. She's only Viltrumites, melee, and flying, but she does have armed sneaking on in there, so she does have her little dagger there. Cool thing about Thula is that she can inflict a lot of wounds, do very good damage, and then with Viltrumite Makes Right, at the beginning of the battle, if you have it leveled up enough, she can basically just stun whoever has the least HP at the very beginning of the fight, which is not half bad. Normally, her call to fame here is her Lust for Death ability, where she increases her attack every time an ally or enemy Viltrumite dies. The kicker with that is that she's actually the only armed Viltrumite. So, unfortunately, the ally clause of that won't kick in. However, a lot of people will be using Thula in their arena team, meaning if you mow down the enemy Thula before yours gets mowed down, a Lust for Death will trigger and give you, and at least at level 10 here, give you 7 glorious seconds of just being an actual bomb. I mean, the fact that Thula can keep up with Universa's damage, even though she's single target, tells you pretty much everything you need to know. And then while you're at it, you can actually get a little bit of lifesteal while you're here. Again, she does great damage, so not actually the worst self-sustain in history. But just whenever a character has wounds. Speaking of wounds, we also have Battle Beast to talk about. Now, Battle Beast, I ignored him for quite a bit of time, but he did just recently get a buff where whenever he eats a wound from an enemy, that wound will also resolve its damage. So, like, if you still had 4 seconds of, 20% damage or whatever, and then he takes it with his abilities, it will still do its damage, thankfully. So basically, that is referring to flaws out here, where when he consumes he consumes a target's wounds, and then he heals himself. Well, before, those wounds actually didn't do damage. It was basically just a dispel. It wasn't a big deal, but it was a little weird to have you dispelling an enemy's debuffs. I mean, I kind of see what they were cooking there, but it was a little odd. Now you don't have to worry about that. Now the wounds will do their full damage, and in fact, it's arguably better, because let's say you've got a wound that's doing damage over 5 seconds. Well, now, if he takes that wound at the very beginning, it's going to do 5 seconds worth of damage all at once. and might just straight up kill them before they can actually recover. There is a higher than 0% chance of that happening because that wound's damage is being triggered straight up. Meanwhile, he does, of course, have Life Leech if a Viltrumite is on the enemy team. That will count for Thula, so that can work out. His main attacks always apply wounds, pretty much. So yeah, he just does a lot of wounds, which also works for Thula. And then he kind of becomes a little bit of a glass cannon, which, you know, is not quite as bad if you do get it leveled up. But he basically increases his damage by an actual ton at the cost of a little bit of defense, depending on the target's HP. Battle Beast is just really good, and the fact that wounds no longer just pure dispel, but actually will resolve their damage, helps him a lot. And I've seen a lot of people use Battle Beast to great effect. The only problem with Battle Beast is that he is a glass cannon, and we're not seeing a whole lot of healing in this team. Battle Beast is going to have to be self-sufficient with his healing, and it's not going to take him too far unless you really have it leveled up, which probably a lot of people don't, if I were to take a guess. There's other priorities for the molecular enhancements. It's very helpful Life Leech. It's just I'm not sure how many people would actually invest in it. So, especially when you're building him, you're going to want to give him an artifact that can assist with his survivability. Something like the Invisibility Cloak wouldn't be a bad idea. Definitely not what I have there. That's not really helping him at all. But just something to kind of keep in mind with Battle Beast. Now, those top three, let's be totally honest here, those top three are the best. By a hilarious long shot. Universa, Thula, Battle Beast. If you don't have them, then unfortunately you don't have victory. But there are other armed characters. First of all, being the Machine Gun Mauler here. With his skills, he can do a burn, which is different from a wound, unfortunately. He can silence enemies, and he can even bat away melee enemies every so often. But unfortunately, his passive, which works, you know, based on how many Maulers on the team, is not going to help you unless you have more than one Mauler. There are a few people scattered about the world that do have at least 2 Mauler twin machine guns built, because what they did is they made an Angstrom, and then 2 melee Maulers and 2 range Maulers. So if you are one of those people who have the 2 ranged Maulers, you know what? You're actually in a pretty good spot here, because what you can do is you can put Universa, Thula, and Battle Beast in the front line, and then you can have your 2 machine gun Maulers in the back line, boosting each other with their passives and slinging damage with the machine guns. If you have more than one of these guys built up, you're actually in a pretty good spot. But unfortunately, alone, I mean, he works. I mean, like I said, I mean, I've got him up to an instant plus, so I mean, he'll work just fine. But he's going to be nowhere near on the level of these 3, because by nature, the Mauler twins are built to be very synergistic with each other. And without those synergies, they are missing a major part of themselves. Now, next is Cecil. I've been critical of Cecil in the past. He did, however, get a buff. His hammer, main ability, is stronger. And if you do have it leveled up all the way, has a slightly higher chance of stunning the enemy. 1000% of his defense stat is nothing to sneeze at. So at the end of the day, that is a good hit. His passive is going to be almost useless unless he's fighting Warwoman. But his subterfuge actually did get a little bit of a buff if you do take him all the way up to skill level 4, where if he teleports, he will steal the buff. He will steal any buffs from the enemy that attacked him, and then he will actually heal the team based on his defense. That right there actually gives him a noteworthy amount of value, because he's pretty much the only proper healer that you're going to get out of the armed tag. And the only reason it counts as armed is because he's slinging that gun. The Reanimen, they're probably not going to help you, if we're being honest, but if you get this up to level 4, and especially if you do have it leveled up all the way, okay, yeah. Cecil can suddenly become usable. This was a part of his buff. This was part of his buff where when he teleports, he heals the entire team as opposed to just a certain character. And it's kind of the only thing that's really keeping his ship afloat. That and the fact that the hammer is actually a pretty decent chunk of damage, admittedly. But this especially, now that if you do have it leveled up a little bit, he can heal, it helps him. It helps him a lot. But you gotta invest in the molecular enhancements. Do you want to do that when there are so many other good characters that you could use them on? Ugh. That's a question, ain't it? That is a question. I will leave that up to you. You probably wouldn't catch me doing it. I'm going to be totally honest there, but it is up to you. So that is my team. After that, there are two other characters. I'll briefly talk about King Lizard. I mean, he's still a brand new character, so not a lot of people are going to have him powered up, and even if you did, he has no Lizardly characters to synergize with, which leaves him kind of incomplete. However, his main ability here actually does inflict wounds, and a chunky one at that, which, if you remember, does synergize with both Thula and Battle Beast. That actually counts for something in this team. And like I said, it's a pretty chunky wound too. I mean, if you take it all the way up to level 10, it's 650. But even at 450 at level 1, that's still actually pretty sweet. Keeping in mind too, if he chucks a wound and Battle Beast hits him with his ult and actually takes that wound, it's going to do the full 450 immediately, as opposed to dividing it up over that 7-second period, basically front-loading the damage and potentially even just putting the enemy down. Speaking of putting the enemy down, his Deadly Focus is actually pretty not bad also, because basically it's meant to be a finisher move, where when an enemy gets below a certain HP threshold, he'll do damage and actually apply another wound, and it has a really quick cooldown. So, yeah. The problem is that he has no Lizardly to synergize with, and he's a new character. But the wound synergy saves him a little bit. So if you have him built, and if you have him powered up, not bad. And then you got Warwoman. Look, guys, Warwoman did get a buff, and that is worth mentioning. It doesn't make her worth the time to build her. Let's be real here. I mean, the buffs are fine and dandy, but the simple fact of the matter is, she just does not have the kit. She just does not have the kit to keep up with the others. I mean, the only thing that is okay on her is that she does have an up to 4-second stun on her last ability. But yeah, it's fine, but she just does not have... She don't got the skills to keep up with other characters, especially in this particular arena, because she's got to deal with Universa and Thula and Battle Beast. She's gonna get torn apart. She'll never even get close to Universa. However, she's perfectly usable. You're not gonna catch me using her, but post buff, she is fine. The buffs she got were much needed. Let's not deny that truth. Buffs she got were much needed. But at the end of the day, they ain't gonna save her. They just ain't. So take that how you will. But yeah, so like I said, my team is gonna be Universa, Thula, Battle Beast, Smaller Twin, and Cecil. Of those units, Thula and Cecil are a little tricky because they're both rare event units. Now, Thula's been around for a long time now. Thula's been around for quite a long time. In fact, she was the first unit that I designate as a rare event unit. I don't think it's really an official term, but she was the first. And Cecil's been out for a similar amount of time too. He's been out for a pretty decent chunk of time, and he has popped up in quite a few events. So if you're a older player, you probably have them. If you're a newer player, though, make sure that you are at least building up your Universa and your Battle Beast. As long as you have those two, you will be fine. Because thankfully, both those characters are regularly accessible in the main recruitments. They've been out for a while. They're very easy to get. So, for sure. And if you have to use Warwoman, you can. But Mauler Twin's actually not bad. Especially if you do happen to get more than one, he actually kind of does get the job done. So what I want to do here, before we sign off, is I do want to get into the arena here. But you'll kind of see what I'm talking about here. Where you see it's like what we've got, like this team is Universa, Battle Beast, Mauler Twin, Cecil, Thula. Over here, looks like they swapped out a Mauler Twin for King Lizard. I mean, the teams are going to be very consistent. You might see the odd King Lizard every now and then, but for the most part, the team that I'm whipping out right now is what you're gonna see. And if you have to choose one character, if you have to choose one character to build in order to survive in this arena, choose Universa. Just build Universa. If you can do that, you will at the very least have a dog in the fight. Because Universa is the carry. My Thula does actually keep up because of just how well I have her built. But at the end of the day, Universa is, was, and always will be, for the foreseeable future, the carry. Although I will confess that Thula's kind of making a liar out of me, because Thula's really putting in the work. But Universa did beat her out by just a teensy-weensy bit. Now, why is Battle Beast considered the MVP of this fight? Your guess is as good as mine. It must have something to do with those status effects. Probably lots of wounds. I mean, I wouldn't call him. I wouldn't call him the MVP of the fight. But you know what? You know what? Who am I to judge? Who am I to judge? So if you can at least minimum build a Universa, you can be you can do okay. You might have a hard time fighting accounts that have both Universa and other characters. But at least you will have a dog in the fight, and you will be able to catch some wins, at least on some of the lower level agents that you get matched up with. And then something like this is kind of interesting. This one is tricky because you will notice they hyper invested into their Battle Beast. I'm not too scared of it because I'm pretty sure that my group team will be able to defeat them. But sometimes you do get that, where they hyper-invest in one character, and that can work. Problem is that my team is pretty dang good, and, like, the whole team is Omnipotent Plus, so I can take those punches. Although, to his credit, his Battle Beast did almost totally nuke my Universa, but Thula really saved her. Whoa, hold on a minute. Huh. I don't really know what happened there. I have a suspicion. I think maybe Thula wiped out some of the lesser units, and because their defense was so low, it inflated her attack that much because they just had no defense to speak of to block her hits. That's what I'm going to assume happened there, because that's a little bit unusual, even on a good day. But the point is, as long as you can get at least Universa and Battle Beast if possible, you'll be fine. You'll be just fine. But yeah, that is what we have for today. Let me know what you think of this arena down in the comments below. Looking at it, we have Criminals coming up soon, no doubt in conjunction with the Lizard League stuff. But we'll see what happens from there. So yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Would greatly appreciate it. And we shall see you next time. Have a good one.